Hey, what's up, everyone? As most of you know, the newest installment of Hideaki Anno's Shin series recently came out with Shin Kamen Rider, so I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about it as me and a buddy went and saw it last night. We've seen all the previous ones, and I've watched Evangelion religiously, so this was a no brainer for me. I love old school tokusatsu stuff, and Kamen Rider is freaking sweet, so this was a no brainer for me. So I just want to say that this one I think is definitely going to stir the pot with the fans of this particular universe. That is Shin Ultraman, Shin Godzilla, Evangelion, and this, if you all want to mash them together, but I think most people do. But this one is definitely the most different. And honestly, it's understandable. Kamen Rider as a TV series, a tokusatsu TV series, is pretty different from everything else. Godzilla and even Ultraman, which you would think would be kind of in the same ballpark, but it's really not. As Ultraman has the classic kind of Thunderbirds aesthetic, old school sci fi, and Godzilla is Godzilla, we don't need to talk about that. Kamen Rider was like a super 70s, crazy, over the top just show where it was like Power Rangers, right? We see a new monster every episode. Kamen Rider shows up, fights him. We move on to the next thing. And this is no different. So, as the previous ones, mostly Shin Godzilla, was very story heavy. We really only see Godzilla a couple times throughout the movie, or a good handful of times. You know what I mean. It's predominantly not with Godzilla in it. And it's a very serious story, and it's a serious take on government and how they respond to calamities and all that stuff. Shin Ultraman was a little less serious, but still had a more serious tone. But it introduced comedy, I think, much more into the mix than the dry comedy of Shin Godzilla, because it was a little sci-fi, it was a little goofy. It was kind of hard to part that out of itself. This one is the least serious out of all of them. It's crazy. It's over the top. It's everywhere. And it may be because they used more CGI or animation in this one, as opposed to the previous two. And they had to do that because there's more fight scenes involved or there's more action involved. And when you break it down, that's really all this movie was. It was just kind of there was no real story to get in the way of the plot. Me and my buddy that went with me, we were probably 10 minutes late to the movie, and we walked in when the Tarantula Man and Kamen Rider were fighting, and who is from episode 1, I believe, of the original series. This movie is basically a mishmash of the manga and a good handful of episodes from the original series. But anyway, we get there, we sit down, and I thought there was something wrong with our ticket or our showtime because of the way of the movie, the pace it was moving, the speed it was moving. I was like, are we at the end of a movie? Like, what's going on here? Like, it was just kind of really quick. So I'm really curious to see what happened in the first 10 minutes since we missed it. It might change my opinion about all of that. But this was a really fast paced movie of just action scene after action scene after action scene after action scene. And that's okay with me. I don't know what it is, but like, I enjoyed watching this movie probably much more than any of the previous other ones, Evangelion excluded. Art is art. But it was crazy. It was silly. It captured that 70s funk, with trumpets or horns or a brass section, whatever, in the score. It had some other weird music mixed in there that I didn't really care for, but I enjoyed the original score and like the funk stuff going on for the most part. It really brought back that like vintage 70s tokusatsu vibe. But this movie had nothing going on outside of the action scenes, and I think that's where it's going to lose a lot of people. People really enjoyed Shin Godzilla, the guy I went with to the theater. He's the one that kind of got me into this stuff or introduced me to Shin Godzilla when that came out. This was his least favorite out of all of them. Because we walked out of the theater and he's like, so what'd you think? He's waiting to ask me. And I was like, you know what, man, I think this might be my favorite one so far. And he was like, this was my least favorite one so far. And, I was telling him everything that I'm telling you guys, I loved how silly it was. It really didn't take itself so seriously. There was crazy costumes, cool. The costumes were dope. You know, some people are going to hate the costumes. The masks were all cool, but the suits could be a little corny depending on who you were. I liked the chameleon Mantis Man in particular. But it was just over the top. It was great. Even though it was action scene to action scene, the way they cut everything, and they may have done it too much, you know, like a scene ends and Kamen Rider's immediately on his motorcycle, or immediately on a new setting, or immediately facing the bad guy. He hops on his motorcycle to go get to the bad guy's location, and somehow immediately he just pulls up there like it's a parking lot and they've been expecting him. So that's a little weird and maybe a little overdone. The CGI, which we all know is not all that great in any of these movies, was much more predominant in this one than the previous two, like I had said before. And that might pull people away as well, because I really wanted to see some cool, like, talking about the action scenes. Some of the fight scenes were really cool. They were really graphic, really gory, and really interesting. And then some of the fight scenes, you're like, what's even going on? It's so dark in this room, and all I could see are the things that are lit up, like the eyes or explosions, or they could have used a real martial artist or the guy playing Kamen Rider, and instead they did a CGI one. It was just a little much, and like I said, we all know that animation's not the best. With that being said, I don't think it's the fault of anyone involved. The guy playing our protagonist is great. He's not as great as the original. I love the original just because he's so over dramatic and over emotional and cheesy and kind of stoic, you know. But he was good. Everyone in the movie was good, and I think we see some people from the previous movies playing other characters as well, so that was all well and good. But like I said, there was no story to this movie. At least there was. I could write the story out probably in 2-3 sentences about what the main arc is, but really you just lose sight of the story because of the way it jumps around. And so this movie does not have as much depth as the previous two. And so, like I said, this one is going to stir the pot. There's going to be people that love it, and there's going to be people that hate it and think it's the worst. And I've already seen a good mix of two on the internet so far. So go into, and honestly, before I even saw this movie, when we were talking about Shin Kamen Rider, me and my buddies, I'm like, dude, this is going to be dope. This is going to be a dark, gritty, serious take on Kamen Rider. And it's not going to get too dark because Anno never gets like super bleak, at least in the Shin stuff so far, like Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, whatever. Evangelion's sad boy shit, we all know that. But this is going to be interesting. Is this the Kamen Rider movie that I wanted? No. Is this a Kamen Rider movie that was fun, captured the essence of the original series, original works, manga, whatever, and just kind of gave you a taste and a feel of everything that's involved or what this whole series is about in a 2-hour film? And I would love to see maybe if there was like a director's cut, or if there's a bunch of additional footage that would kind of make this movie make more sense. I would love to see it. I would love to see an extended version of this, because I think we're kind of missing the meat and potatoes of what we got, or mostly maybe all we have is meat, and we're missing our sides. I want my mac and cheese. I want my potatoes. I want my vegetables. I want it all on one cohesive plate, and that's not really what we got in this one. So just keep these things in mind when you go to see this movie. You don't want to have your expectations be way up high and be disappointed like the buddy that went with me. Go in with super low expectations and just have a good time watching the film. Ultimately, buckle up and enjoy the ride.